Hello, fictional. Welcome to the What If Essay. Today we are gonna see what if Issei's turbulent home life led to a fresh start. Part 1. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Wake up big brother, if not I'll have to cuddle you. Another day and another stupid message from this alarm clock. Sure, an alarm clock that got a new alarm tone every day might have sounded appealing when I bought it, sounded interesting, but this was just ridiculous. At least it keeps me from wanting to hit the snooze button, I suppose. Issei, are you up? It's time to get ready for school, my mom yelled up the stairs. With a deep sigh I replied, yeah mom, I'm up. I'll be down in just a minute. Truth is I didn't want to go downstairs. I knew exactly what waited for me down there. Nevertheless I carried on to get ready for school. My uniform on, teeth brushed, and hair fixed, I descended the stairs in bitter anticipation. About time boy, my father grumbled from his paper, you think the world is just waiting for you or something? Choosing to ignore the provocation I greeted my mother, good morning mom, something smells delicious. Good morning Issei, my mother smiled at me. It was at that moment I noticed her left wrist was slightly red and her cheek as well. My fists tightened as my father reached over and grabbed me by the back of the hair and began berating me, you ignoring me boy. Got no greetings for your father who paid for the food you're about to eat. No, dad, I responded begrudgingly, I'm not ignoring you. After I eat I'll be all too glad to get out of your hair so you can get back to your work. Truth was my father had been out of a job for weeks. Something about disorderly conduct, and if I'm not wrong I heard mom saying something to him about sexual harassment. So not only is he laying his hands on my mother now, but he is flirting with other women. I may not know what kind of man I want to be when I am older, but I can say for certain what kind I don't want to be. Unfortunately my next reflex was something that pissed my dad off the most. As mom sat breakfast down in front of us clasped my hands. I'm not exactly what you'd call a believer. I mean, why would any god let this kind of stuff happen? But my best friend growing up and his family had been very involved in the church. His dad had been the coolest man I'd ever met. He had this large sword he kept at home. The strangest thing happened when I touched it once. It had emitted this soft sort of glow. His dad had caught me, but instead of getting mad he just talked to me about the future and church. The thing's so bad at home I spent a lot of extra time there. Dad had tried to speak out to my friend's dad once. They had gone to a separate room at his behest, and when they exited my dad looked terrified. He had actually started treating mom and I a lot better after that. Then my friend's family moved and well, things got a lot worse. That's the first time I ever remember him hitting me and mom at least. I didn't blame my friend's dad, but I couldn't help but think there was some kind of correlation. Now whenever I sat down to a meal and reflexively went to pray he would reach out and smack me on the back of the head. Like he just did. And thank dad for your food, but you can thank God, huh? Well then I guess you don't need my food, do ya? Go on, get out of here. You can eat in this house when you learn some appreciation. His shouts fell on deaf ears as I eagerly collect my things and headed for the door. My mother, knowing how futile it would be to argue, just came up to me at the door and gave me a gentle hug. It was her way of apologizing. I knew it wasn't her fault, she didn't make him act this way, and she deserved better. Still, as she hugged me I barely resisted jumping as I felt her hand slide into my back pocket. It took me a second to get over the shock to realize that she was slipping me something and trying to keep my father from noticing. Have a good day Issei. I will mom, I love you. A simple exchange of words. Sure, it only sounded natural to most people. But I always made sure I told my mother I loved her. If I was truly afraid of anything it was that she wouldn't be there one day when I got home. Walking away from the house I made sure I was out of eyesight before I checked my back pocket. $100 bill and a note. I'm using American currency here because I'm not sure if you all would have understood that. That's about 10,000 yen. The message was brief but heartfelt. Have great day Issei. Sorry I can't do more. Love mom. Crumpling the note in my hand I closed my eyes and turned my head to the sky. I was desperately fighting back tears. Hey God, if you're out there and you're listening, please take care of my mom. The words caught in my throat as I silently whispered them. I love you mom. Knowing my words will scatter empty into the wind I carried on. I loved the kendo room in the morning. The wood always glowed in the light of the early sun. After getting my gear on I grabbed a shinai, wooden sword, hit the floor. These drills were one of the few things that kept me sane. Every kata was like a dance, and every move helped me forget a little. I was lost in my thoughts until I felt another sword crash against my own. Tibba, I acknowledged my friend. Good morning Issei. Hard at it again I see, he flashed his prince smile at me. Tibba Hyoudou, the prince of Kuo Academy. His pretty face, graceful air and charms bewitched all the girls of the school. The girls wanted him and the guys wanted to be him. He and I have been best friends since our first year of high school. He isn't a member of the kendo club and yet he is a marvelous swordsman. I'd say I've probably learned more sparring him than the club. Even I'm not really sure why we are friends. He came by the club one day and I was alone practicing, everyone else had already left. He asked if I'd like a friendly match and everything else is history. More often than not he wins, but here in the past few months I've started to be a decent match for him. Good morning to you, Prince. You here to get your butt handed to you this early? That sounds like a really bad way to start the day, Issei taunted him, but the mirth was heavy in his voice. Kiba smiled gently in return. It does sound horrible to start the day out that way, and so I'd hate to put you through that. No, I was wondering if you'd be interested in stopping by the orc today. That's right, he's a member of that weird club. This wasn't the first time he'd asked me to drop by. The Occult Research Club was what it's called. The name pretty much says it all, but apparently they studied the occult things around Japan. I've stopped in before but honestly I felt out of my element. Everyone there was very nice, but still I had this feeling that I didn't belong somehow. That being said, I have to admit the club president and vice president were both very beautiful. Of course, being the two famous big sisters of the school they would be. First you have the vice president, Akeno Himejima. If I had to put it in words I'd say she is a true Japanese beauty. Her pale skin, dark hair, violet eyes and slim figure make her the picture of what you'd envision when you think beautiful Japanese girl. Her counterpart, the president of the club, is Ria's Gremory. It's hard to describe her with words. She has the air about her like she is some kind of royalty. From the way she carries herself to the way she speaks, everything about her seems very high society. Her crimson hair contrasts so strongly against her fair skin it's almost shocking. I can still remember her smile and striking blue eyes the moment we met. It was as if she was able to see through me. I felt almost naked in front of her gaze yet never once did I feel judged or belittled. It was frightening in a way. I guess if I'm being really honest there is one other feature about the two girls that really stands out. I'm not a pervert or anything, but those two have the biggest breasts of anyone I've ever seen. I've even heard some of the girls in the kendo club talk about it. I've avoided those conversations. Thanks a lot man, but I'll pass. Everyone is really nice and all, but I don't think I really fit in there, I explained. A rare sad look passed Kiba's face. Sorry to hear that man. Everyone really enjoyed having you. Ria's told me to bring you whenever I could. I'd really enjoy having you there so come whenever you want. I'm not really sure what was sadder. The fact that I was letting down my friend or the fact that I was disappointing Ria's. Geez, what kind of guy does that make me? After Kiba left I put my gear away and showered for school. That was when I heard trouble. Two girls' voices were coming from outside the locker room. For some reason our club has become dominated by girls. The only other guys quit when the new captain Caddis, a girl, took over this year and mopped the floor with the other guys. Thanks to the training from Kiba I was able to win, but it was still a close match. They don't treat me badly, but I do think Caddis and her friend Murayama resent me for being the strongest member in the club. Honestly I try not to make anything out of it because they are still nice to me. As the voices came closer I started to panic. There is never scheduled practice in the morning before school, so the building is free to use. It's pretty common knowledge that I come here in the morning too. So the question is what are they doing here? The voices came closer and I could finally make them out. I think I hear the showers running, someone must be back here. Do you think it's Issei? Probably. Why are they coming back here? Maybe if I yell out I can get them to go away and let me get dressed. Hey. I called out, it's Issei, do you mind waiting in the dojo so I can get dressed? I'm just getting out of the shower. Don't worry we can talk here, it's the captain. Yeah we have something to tell you, her friend added in. Luckily the showers are large and I have all my stuff in here, so after getting dried off as fast as possible I started sliding into my clothes. Well what's so important that it couldn't wait? Finally buttoning my pants I walk out to find the captain and her friend not wearing tops. They even went as far as to let out fake tiny screams. What's going on here? If this is some kind of flirting thing I'm really not into the two of you like that, I shouted without even thinking while covering my eyes. Oh no Caddis, Issei has peeked on us while we were changing, Murayama feigned distress. Caddis played along, I think we'll have to tell all the other girls about this. Murayama continued the farce, but if we do that they will think he is a pervert and no one will want to have anything to do with him. His high school life will be miserable. I can obviously see where this is going, so I quit covering my eyes and looked straight into theirs doing my best to avoid looking at either one's chest. Okay, so what's this all about? Your little performance is not funny. What do you want? Both girls smiled, we want you to quit the kendo club. The shock had to be obvious on my face, but why? Murayama answered, because since Caddis took over it has become almost an all-girls club. Now say if Caddis were better than you that would be one thing, but for our best member to be a boy and not our captain is a problem. So if you don't leave we'll tell everyone that you came along to peek on us during morning training. The two girls smiled like they had me by the tail. Girls there are a few flaws in your plan. They looked far more surprised than they should have been, like what? I sighed, well first off, it's your word against mine since no one else is here. I understand there are two of you and all, but Kiba was just here, and so he knows I was here first. Second, it's a commonly known fact that I come here before school. Several of the other girls have come early just to train with me. Third, and as you know, I'm kind of popular with most of the girls in the school, especially our club, having chazzed off the perverted duo on more than one occasion. They aren't just going to buy that I've turned pervert myself. Lastly, and this is just an observation mind you, but why did you actually take off your clothes at all, when it's just my word versus yours? The looks on the two girls' face were utterly crestfallen. Of course they couldn't have known about the Kiba thing, but the rest of it was obvious. They slowly put back on their clothes, all the while glaring at me with tear-filled eyes. I just couldn't help myself. You two aren't actually idiots by any chance. Murayama snapped at me. I'll have you know Caddis is 86th in our class. I tilted my head, and what about you? Addis responded instead, she tries really hard. All I could do was shake my head. I don't understand. I've never had any issue with the two of you. I don't want to be captain, and I've always thought you did a great job. I think the guys who left because they were weaker than you are idiots. So why are you being so harsh to me? The girls seemed to lose their resolve for a moment, but instantly sprung back. It was Murayama who finally replied, we don't want you here, Issei. You might be the great knight of our Prince Kiba, but you still don't belong here. Can't you just get that you aren't wanted? Something about those words stung. It struck a lot deeper than I thought it would anyway. Kendo was the one thing that I did that genuinely brought me peace, but now, I'm not wanted here. I can feel the tears welling up in my eyes. Somewhere else that I'm not wanted. Issei, they said in unison. I finished getting myself ready and left without a word. The two girls had seemed to have lost all of their steam and wore a guilty expression on their faces. I headed towards the school building with my bag. The sky was so blue and the sun made the morning look so cheerful. So why was it on such a sunny day that I felt so blue? Hey God, it's me again. I know I'm asking a lot and all, but if you could just help me find somewhere to belong, I'd really appreciate it. And as always, take care of Mom. Issei bowed his head as he finished. How long would his words fall on deaf ears? Issei couldn't actually recall the rest of the day. It all seemed to go by in a blur. Sure, Issei belonged at school, but that wasn't a choice anyone made, it was a law. He really didn't feel like he was wanted there. Suddenly I found myself on a bridge. Underneath was a street full of traffic, off to the west was the setting sun, and all around me were people going home. I couldn't help but stop and think where I belong in all of this. I'm certainly not the suicidal type, but wouldn't it be so easy to climb over the wall here? I'd fall a bit and then it'd all be over. Hello, I was shaken from my stupor when a voice called out to me. I looked over to see a girl I didn't know. Her uniform wasn't one from my school, so I wasn't sure who she was or where she was from. Are you okay? She continued. I saw you standing there and couldn't help but call out to you. Staring off into the sunset like that with such a deep and thoughtful expression on your face, you look like someone from a movie. It was kind of cool. Was honestly all I could manage. Without even looking the least bit frustrated, she repeated herself, are you okay? Shaking off my funk, I finally replied, sorry, I was a bit lost in thought there. I'm okay, just kind of a rough day I guess. Thanks for asking though. That's okay, I just wanted to be sure you were okay. I'm Yuma Amano. It sounded like she was trying to comfort him. I tried to produce the most genuine smile that I could. Thanks a lot, Yuma, I really needed that. My name is Issei. Hyoudou, right, she interrupted me, obviously knowing who I am. Sorry, yeah, I already knew that. Truth is, there was another reason I approached you. I've been watching you for a while now and was wanting to ask you a question. I was completely blown away. This girl knew who I was and had been watching me. I guess I should have been weirded out, but to be honest, I was flattered. After the day I've been having, someone who was actually looking for me, wanting to see me, was a desirable distraction. This time my smile required no effort. Well, Yuma, it seems you have me at a disadvantage here. But I guess I owe you for checking on me here. What can I do for you? She began to mumble something that I couldn't hear. Sorry, I can't understand, could you speak up? Would you go out with me? She'd gone from mumbling to shouting at me. I think you're really cool and would like you to be my boyfriend. I'm immediately caught off guard by her request. You want to go out with me? She clenched her fists to her chest with her reply, looking as earnest as possible. I saw you in a kendo tournament earlier this year, and you were really cool. Then when I asked some girls from school about you, they said you were the knight of Kuo Academy. Then I saw you around a few times around places and you just seemed so nice and together. Most of the guys our age are just pervy jerks. So would you please go on a date with me this weekend? I stood there shocked. All day I'd been looking for a place to belong. Maybe this, maybe she, was it. I know the kind of guys she must be running into. Our own perverted duo leave much to be desired, and our school was only just made co-ed last year, so it's still dominated by girls. Maybe having a girlfriend would give me something to feel like I belong. I know other people can't make you happy, but still. God, was this you answer? Sure, I blurted out, I mean, yes, I'd be happy to go out with you. Would this weekend work for you? Her smile grew so large that it filled me with warmth. Wonderful, I'll meet you at park at 10, then, okay. Sounds great, I could barely contain my excitement. Not even my dad's bad mood could bother me that night. To be honest, him being passed out drunk did help a bit. Mom was in the kitchen when I got home finishing dinner. Well, it's been a long time since I've seen a smile like that on my baby boy's face. Could it be a girl? My mom never really cut up much when my father was awake. It was a rare treat to see this side of her come out. She figured me out so fast it had me spinning. Well, maybe. I think that I might have met someone special. We're going on a date this weekend. She raised the back of her hand to her forehead. Oh my, I'm losing my baby boy. He's all grown up and going to find another woman to care for him. What will I do without my boy? Haha mom, I chided, you can quit with the theatrics. It's a first date and I don't really know her all that well. Surprising me, she walked over and wrapped me up in a hug. I'm just glad that my boy had something good happen to him. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Just stay happy for the rest of your life. I wrapped my mom tight in a hug. She deserved all the happiness in the world. I couldn't begin to understand why she stayed with this bum. Why mom, why? The rest of the week seemed to breeze by. I didn't see Uma again even though I stopped by the bridge every day. I also only went to the kendo club room in the mornings for practice. I wasn't sure if I was going to quit, but I wasn't ready to face the captain yet. By the end of Friday I was basically bouncing with anticipation for the weekend. That was when I got a surprise. Hey Issei, it was Kiba waiting for me outside my classroom, but he looked nervous. I know it's not really your club, but would you please visit the org today with me? Kiba had asked me tons of times to go, but never like this. If it's that important to you man, of course I will. I've gotta ask though, are you okay? You seem different. He tried to smile, but it just wasn't reaching his eyes. Yeah Issei, all good, just something I wanted to talk to you about. The president and I, that is. Riaz wants to talk to me. This was shocking news indeed. No problem bro. Just try and chill out a bit, okay? He let out a deep sigh and turned. Just follow me then Issei. The familiar path to the old school building seemed longer today as Kiba's nervous state filled me with dread. I've known Kiba for a while now, and one thing you can always count on is his calm and collected demeanor. I think half of my popularity comes from being friends with him. What could have my best friend so spooked? Upon entering the club room, Kiba took a seat in a chair and gestured for me to have a seat on the couch. I noticed the petite Kaneko, our school's unofficial mascot, sitting next to me. Good afternoon Kaneko, I greeted her. How are you today? She nodded to me. Good afternoon Issei. I am well, thank you. I had to chuckle a bit as she went straight back to eating her snack. She kind of reminded me of a cat. They give you a hint of attention and then go straight back to ignoring you. It just made her seem cute to me though. That was when Riaz and Akeno walked through an adjoining door. Ria's hair seemed to shimmer a bit in the light. As if she really need anything else to make her seem more regal honestly. But Kiba, you brought him, she addressed Kiba first before turning her gaze upon me. It was hard to say anything with those dazzling blue eyes staring at me. Forgive my tardiness Issei. After a particularly long school day I just love a good shower. I couldn't help but swallow a bit before responding, no worries. Now Kiba said there was something the two of you needed to talk to me about. Kiba looked away a bit, but Ria's gaze never faltered. Yes Issei, we of the Occult Research Club are going on a bit of a field trip this weekend to Kyoto. It is a bit of an overnight trip in which we will be looking into some of the local myths there. Kiba has informed me of some trouble you've been having in the Kendo Club, and I thought this would be the perfect occasion for you to meet us and really see if you could enjoy our club. Truly I was touched, but I already knew my response. Thanks so much, but I must decline. As fun as that sounds, I have a date scheduled for this Saturday. I don't want to be the kind of guy that goes back on his plans like that. Sincerely though, thank you. Riaz didn't seem the least bit deterred by this. Oh I see. Well please think about it. This will be a pretty big trip and I know Kiba really wants you to go. I'd also really like you to be there. I guess you can say that I've been wanting to get to know more about you for a while now. Was I hearing this right? Riaz Gremory, the most beautiful girl in our entire school, maybe the city wants to get to know me better. I took a second to think about it and then immediately felt like crap. Feeling depressed I replied, wow, I must really be a crappy guy. Maybe I really am his son after all. Kiba noticed my change in mood immediately. Issei, what's the matter? It's just that, I stopped clenching my fist in frustration at my own thoughts. I have a perfectly nice girl who is interested in me. She asked me out on a date and I said yes. Now I have this beautiful other girl asks me out, and even if it was only for a moment I considered bailing on her. That makes me just as bad as him. I admit, Riaz, you are most likely the most beautiful girl I've ever met. Any man you would be lucky to your attention. But I won't be the kind of scum who hurts a nice innocent girl just to be with someone prettier. I would never hurt a woman like that. Everyone looked uncomfortable now. If it wasn't what I said, it was my outburst. I felt as uncomfortable as everyone else looked. It was obviously time to go. Excuse me, and with that I stood to leave. Riaz broke from her usual demeanor and gently grabbed my arm. Issei, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to say anything to upset you. But we would love to have you. Thanks, was all I managed before heading out the door. That was when something else unexpected happened. Kiba jumped up and grabbed me by the arm. Please Issei, don't go out with her. She's a Kiba, you mustn't, Riaz cut in. But President, if we don't tell him then, Kiba pleaded. Her expression shouted distress, but she shook her head. You know the rules. Okay, now I was lost. What the heck is going on here? Kiba, you seem to know something. I'm really struggling right now, okay, so help me out here. You're my best friend, please don't hold out on me. His face distorted in pain and he looked away. This just seemed like the final straw. I'd had it. So my best friend is holding out on me now. The one person I believe in, rely on, and you are leaving me out when something seems this important. I know I'm only speaking in pain right now, but it's all I have. I raced out of the building with Kiba calling my name. I didn't hesitate or stop to look back. I feel like I'm breaking apart. At least I have my date with Yuma to look forward to. I can also talk to mom when I get home. Running all the way home I was starting to slow down due to exhaustion. My chest felt heavy from all the running and I was barely holding the tears back. I had to get home and see my mom. Sirens wail in the distance. No, I knew it didn't mean anything but I ran, my heart dreading the worst. It was as I feared. When I reached my home I saw the EMTs carrying my mother on a stretcher. Mom, it's me. I screamed, Mom, I'm here, please say something. Slowly she turned to look at me. I could see 2 black eyes and blood streaming down her face. Bruising was apparent all over her. She was trying to speak, but her voice wasn't coming out. I forced past the cops and others and held her hand. Mom, I'm sorry. If only I'd been here, I cried as I held her hand. Giving up talking, she squeezed my hand and did her best to give me her I love you smile. I'm sorry son, we need to take her so we can stop the bleeding, the EMT told me. All I could do was nod as they took her away. Silently I prayed that this wouldn't be the last time I held her hand. We've got him. He is stinking drunk though sir and fighting every step of the way. He's been yelling that she stole from him, an officer behind me stated. That's right, that filthy bitch stole $100 from me. I bet she gave it. That's when he seemed to notice me. You. Give me back my money, you little shit. I ought to whoop your ass right here, you little bastard. That'll be enough with just the spousal abuse, the officer hauling him away said. I had to admit when the officer accidentally slammed his father's head into the door of the police car when putting him in, it gave him a sick sense of satisfaction. I watched him drive away before stumbling inside my house. I vaguely remember one of the officers asking me if they needed to contact a relative. I think I told him I was 16 and would be okay by myself. Something about calling someone. I don't know who I'd call though. We really don't have any immediate living relatives. That's probably part of the reason mom seemed so stuck. No, what was really haunting me was something else altogether. As they were taking him I heard him screaming about $100 and I knew exactly what he was talking about. I also knew precisely at that moment where my mom got that $100 from. The man I once called father had a fishing fund. It was really his go out and get hammered ever so often fund. Ever since he lost his job however he just drank at home. I guess mom thought she could sneak some of the money out for me. Which basically means that this is all my fault. The tears poured from my eyes. I didn't have any strength to hold them back. Mom, God, where were you? Mom, please watch over her now and bring her back to me. Sun streaked into my window as the sun rose on the next day. I watched it slowly rise. It's not like I'd been sleeping anyways. Since I couldn't sleep I'd gone over all of the details of date I was going to have today. I actually figured I was going to cancel until I called the hospital and they told me my mom couldn't have visitors for the next 24 hours. Apparently she had some severe damage so she was in a critical care unit for observation. It felt a little wrong going on a date right now, but it wouldn't do me any good to sit around here moping. Plus, as sad as it is, I have nothing and no one else right now. My day was looking up however when I showed up half an hour early and found Yuma waiting for me. She was wearing a beautiful sundress and a big floppy hat on her head. It was so cute it should have been wrong. You know the guy is supposed to be here first, don't ya? I teased her. She blushed a little, which melted my heart. Sorry, I was just so excited I hardly slept. What about you, how did you sleep? I chuckled a bit trying to hold back the pain, didn't get a wink. She didn't need to know the real reason why though. She giggled at that. Yeah, I definitely needed this. As the date went on I could feel a gentle peace take hold of me. Was this going to solve all of my problems? No, far from it, but right now this is what I need. As the day went on we did everything I could think of. We went to the movies, ate lunch and then the arcade. I even won her a little scrunchie. Sure it was lame, but she seemed to love it. Thank you God for this. I was almost thinking you'd abandon me there for a minute. Uma, I stopped her as we strolled through the park, only just then realizing I was holding her hand. Thank you for today. There are a lot of things I want to tell you, but I can't. What I can say is I needed today so much that I can't even begin to tell you how much it has meant to me. Their cheeks turned the faintest shade of red. Oh Issei, you say the sweetest things. There is one more thing I'd really like to do. Can we go to the water fountain in the park really quick? It's the perfect spot for this. Okay, that's not far, and look, the sun is about to set. I really wasn't ready for this to end either. As we walked up to the water fountain, she hopped up and started walking across the edge, giggling. Well, here we are, my dear Uma. What is it you would like to do? Well, the truth is, Issei, I have a favor to ask. She leaned towards me as she spoke. After everything she'd done for me today, I couldn't think of anything I wouldn't do for her. Name it. Would you? Suddenly her smile turned into more of a wicked grin. Die for me? The shock was crazy. I wasn't able to process what she was saying. I mean, I must have heard her wrong. I laughed softly. Sorry Uma, I must have misunderstood. What was it you wanted? Her grin stayed firm. Oh, that simple, my dear Issei. Just die for me. I couldn't deny it a second time. I watched as the beautiful young girl in front of me turned into a scantily clad voluptuous woman with black feathered wings. I should have been shocked, but honestly all I could do was collapse to my knees. This was it, I couldn't handle any more. I'm not sure why she was doing this or what she wanted, but this was the final betrayal. I suddenly felt so empty and hollow. Why Uma was all I could manage. Oh my sweet boy. I really did have a good time with you. Unfortunately you have a sacred gear in you, and now you have to die for it. Orders are orders, my darling. She walked over and placed a kiss on my cheek. Please don't be angry. It's not like you have anything else without me, right? Your mom is in the hospital probably dying, and whose fault is that? Your dad will probably kill you if he gets out of jail. You are being kicked out of your club and just lost your best friend. Really, isn't dying the best thing for you? I had no response. I couldn't even argue with her. She was right on all accounts. Maybe it was really better if I died. My hollow eyes just took in the woman in front of me, the woman I thought I might have loved, that might have loved me, my godsend. Oh my poor sweet boy. Do take care in the afterlife. Holding her hand out, she held some sort of spear made of light. I watched her and waited. She readied the spear, a new sadistic look in her eyes that held nothing of the Uma that I knew. Empty, hollow, and emotionless, I simply awaited death. I wasn't even going to move, but for a moment I think she hesitated. The look crossed her eyes that looked vaguely like pain. There might even be tears in her eyes, but with a shake of her head, her sadistic look returned and she threw the spear. There was now a huge gaping hole in my chest. I sat there on my knees watching as the blood poured from the wound. I couldn't really feel any pain though. I couldn't feel anything. Well, that's it for me. Goodbye my sweet boy. Those last words sounding just like the woman I knew was Uma. She flew away. Finally my body collapsed to the ground and I stared up into the sky. The stars were starting to come out. For some reason I wasn't worried anymore. Honestly, a strange sense of peace came over me. At least this way, if my mom dies I'll be with her. Yes, it's my time. God, I want to be angry, so very angry at you. But what good would it do me? I won't lie and say thoughts like why didn't you save me aren't crossing my mind. But it doesn't matter. We all make choices and I really can't hold you responsible for someone else. If I could have one last wish though, please take care of my mom. She deserves so much better. Please help her to get better and go start a new life without that jerk. That's it, thanks for giving her to me and for life so far. Sending his wishes into the wind, he drifted peacefully away. Through the bushes Kiba burst through, wielding a sword in each hand. His eyes scanned the area until he found Issei and raced over. He immediately checked the area for danger. Finding none, he collapsed to his knees beside his dying friend. He had been searching for Issei for the past several hours. Only now, too late, did he find his best friend. Impaled through the chest, he had died alone. It was at that moment something welled up inside of Kiba, something he hadn't felt since he was a child's sorrow. So Kiba did the only thing he could, he screamed in agony. Ah, Issei. My friend. Please don't die, Kiba shouted into the night as he clutched his friend's body. It was only then that he knew what to do. He had to contact Riaz, maybe she could do something. No sooner had he made the communication circle did a blinding light appear in front of him. It was in the shape of a cross, and as the dread spread across his skin, he knew exactly what was about to appear before him. A beautiful woman clad in white robes and long blonde hair stood there before the two dying boys. Kiba wanted to yell at her to leave, but at that moment he realized she was crying. What do you want? He asked with less venom than he'd expected. She walked slowly forward and placed a hand on his head. A gentle smile spread across her face as she stroked his best friend's hair. Kiba couldn't place the look on her face, but it did remind him faintly of the look Riaz had when she'd found him so long ago, freezing and dying. This boy said a prayer as he died. Would you like to know what he prayed for? Tiba looked at the woman with surprise clearly etched along his features. He actually longed to hear what she had to say. What? She then turned her smile to him, the tears still streaming down her face. He didn't get mad and curse the god he believed in. He didn't blame anyone or think he should have been saved. Even though he had every right in the world, he wasn't the least bit mad. He simply asked for God to take care of his mother. I don't know if you're aware, but his father, that despicable man, beat her nearly to death over a little bit of money that she'd given Issei because he was denying his son meals. Issei asked that we care for and watch over her. Not a thing did he ask for himself. Not help, nor a second chance. He even thanked heaven for having been born to his mother, even after all the misery he suffered. Tiba, hearing this, dropped his blade to the ground. He embraced his friend as they clattered to the ground. Bitterly he wept into his friend's chest. It was at that moment a red magic circle appeared behind him. He turned, knowing well the person behind him, Riaz. Riaz stepped beside him, and the angel backed away. Oh no. How could we have let this happen to you? I'm so sorry, Kiba. I know you wanted to tell him, but we couldn't. Oh Issei, why couldn't you have just come with me? But don't worry, you won't die here. Suddenly Riaz pulled out several red chess pieces from her hand. It would take all of her pawn pieces, but she would gladly use them to help this young boy. The problem was the angel that stood in front of her, who seemed opposed to this idea. Riaz and Kiba backed away slightly, releasing their devil wings, revealing themselves for what they were. Unfortunately, that's when the woman in front of them released 6 sets of angel wings. Riaz knew that even at night, when devils were at their strongest, they were no match for the woman in front of them. Instead of fighting, she held up her hands. Kiba, I shall defer to your judgment on this, but make haste, for he has precious little time. Please think carefully and remember his prayer. What do you think would make him happy? Riaz noticed the inner struggle on the face Kiba. He was obviously battling with this decision, but she couldn't understand why. With a word the angel would leave and she could help his friend, so why? Once again Kiba released his sword and turned away. Come on, President, he doesn't belong with us. Riaz was upset and confused. She passed one more longing look at the boy before addressing the angel. Promise me you'll take good care of him. The angel just smiled fondly at her. The best, you have my word. Unexpected tears fell from her face as she turned to run after Kiba. She couldn't help but wonder what she had just missed out on. She was simply forced to trust in the decision Kiba had made. You have far too much potential for any regular card. I would very much love to make you my jack, but I can feel the power you have lurking inside you, so only this card seems appropriate, she softly spoke as she placed the card against his chest. I, Gabriel, hereby summon you back to this world, child, as a servant of the high heavens. Be reborn now as one of heaven's jokers and join me. You who I find most worthy. Cradling the young man in her arms, she carried him gently and in a blinding flash of light took him to heaven. My eyes fluttered open. Considering the last thing, I remember this quite unexpected. Looking around, I see a room brightly lit with no obvious source of light. Beside me, resting peacefully, was a woman in all white. Her silky blonde hair cascaded down her shoulder and face as she slept peacefully with her hands holding one of mine. Maybe I am in heaven. I hate to wake her, but she's the only person who can answer my question. Excuse me. Excuse me. Her eyes fluttered open. It seemed to take her a second to take in her surroundings. Then suddenly her eyes widened and she hugged me tightly. Her powerful hug drove my face into her rather well-endowed chest. Something I suppose I should be happy about. That is, except for all of the things that have just happened to me and the fact that I like to breathe. Suddenly the woman loosened her grip on me and held my shoulders at arm's length, all the while her smile continued to beam at me. Issei Hyoudou, I am the angel Gabriel. An angel? Wow, I stammered. I guess this means I really am dead though, huh? She giggled a bit at that. Well, it is true that I am an angel. This is heaven, and you aren't quite human anymore. I can most certainly assure you that you are not dead. And if it's any consolation, your mother is doing just fine. I felt as though an enormous weight had been lifted off of my shoulders. I wanted to cry again, but honestly, after all I've cried recently, I didn't want to feel like a big baby. Still, I was overjoyed at the news. Thank you so much. I embraced her in a hug this time, my head slightly higher. You have no idea what this means to me, thank you. She let me hold her till I was done and then backed away. I guess I should ask, what exactly am I now? With a slightly more mischievous grin, she helped me stand. I found myself dressed in a simple white gown. Honestly though, I was just happy to not have a massive hole in my chest. I think it would be easier to show you. She gestured her arms to her sides. Try to feel yourself opening up and spreading out. It seemed a bit silly, but as she suggested, I did what she did and followed her instructions. Having expected nothing to happen when 2 sets of pure white wings erupted from my back, you can imagine I was more than a little surprised. I'm an angel, I stuttered out. That's right, she stated as she brought out all 12 of her wings, and as I've said, I am an angel as well. One of the 4 leaders of heaven to be exact. You may call me Gabriel. I dropped to one knee without hesitation. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do, but this seemed like a good idea as any. I had thought she was cute when she was sleeping, beautiful when awake, but now she was on a whole other level. She was simply divine, no pun intended. My eyes cast downward, I didn't realize she was reaching for me until I felt her hand on my shoulder. When I looked up we were face to face as she was squatting in front of me. Beautiful, the word escaped my mouth before I could stop it. She simply gave me another gentle smile, with maybe a hint of red in her cheeks. Why thank you. You're quite handsome yourself, young man. That aside, I need to tell you about how things stand with your life as they are now. I swallowed hard. I knew that things would be different. I am an angel now, I can't exactly go home and live with mom. I would have to stay in heaven with Gabriel. Still, that wasn't her fault, and I certainly wasn't going to blame her for it. Just tell me whatever you need, my lady. As I see it, my life is yours, I replied as respectfully and genuinely as I was able. Oh my silly boy, don't worry about being so formal when it's just the two of us. Save that lady business for when we are in public. Her smile was so full of warmth that I could feel it throughout my entire body. First we shall talk about where you are. Right now you are in what is called first heaven. This is where angels live. You are currently in the house of hearts, where people who serve under me live. Now let's get to exactly what you are. Angels are created by God, however we now have the ability to reincarnate new angels. Humans who have lived a good life and are strong can be reborn as angels known as brave saints. You are such a brave saint. Each high-ranking angel that is allowed to have followers is given a set of cards. Each set follows a specific suit as in a regular deck of playing cards. We are considered the king cards, so we can reincarnate a queen card all the way through an ace. You, however, are a special case. Your potential power is incredibly high, so any ordinary card was ill-suited to you. You received the Joker card. You do not serve me directly as one of my brave saints. However, you will be known as my Joker, and your main job will be to protect me and follow my orders directly. Is this all clear so far? I nodded my head, quietly trying to absorb the information. That's wonderful, my sweet boy. Now I must be off, my brothers called a meeting some time ago, but I simply could not attend until you made a recovery. She spoke with her usual grace and a hint of something else, maybe exasperation. How long have I been out for? I wondered aloud. She refused to look straight at me, the pain evident on her face. 3 days. I was very concerned that I was too late. For some reason, it broke my heart to see her that way, so I did the only thing I could think of. Embracing her once more, I wrapped her tightly in my arms. Thank you, Gabriel, for everything, I whispered into her ear. Her beautiful smile once again in place, she wished me well before disappearing in a blinding flash of light. I just realized that I wasn't quite sure where I was and what to do. I found myself playing with my wings until the doors to my room opened suddenly. The woman in white robes walked into the room. Her blue eyes and blonde hair stood out to him, but her face seemed so familiar. She looked almost like an actress or celebrity. Yet the aura she radiated as well as her powerful frame told him she was not to be underestimated. Lady Gabriel, pardon the intrusion, but she quit talking when she noticed I was awake and alone in the room. Glancing over me, she addressed the situation. Where has Lady Gabriel gone? She said she has a meeting to attend with her brothers. I replied, not really sure what I was supposed to be saying. Goodness, it's about time, she sighed. Lord Uriel was quite upset. The meeting has been postponed for days now, you know. Lady Gabriel has been quite worried about you. She would not leave your side for a moment. How are you? I was told you were just reincarnated, weren't you? The end of her question seemed a bit off as she examined me. I'm sorry to have worried her. I wish I could explain what happened, but I'm not really sure myself. The first date I ever had and the girl grew black wings and sent a spear of light through my chest. I am very flattered concerning Lady Gabriel's attention, though I don't feel deserving of it. I actually feel fine, all things considered. No gaping hole in my chest, you know. And yes, according to Lady Gabriel, it has been 3 days. There's no way. The last person to be resurrected with more than one set of wings was. She stopped and seemed to consider things for a moment. What card did she use to revive you? Oh, she said she used a Joker, I replied casually. Her look in response was anything but casual. She used what? The Joker, I responded, a tad frightened this time, and began fiddling with my wings nervously. Is something wrong? She looked sympathetic but frustrated. I'll say it is. Now I know why a meeting was called. Don't worry though, none of this is your fault. Michael would never punish someone when they did nothing to deserve it. But if you keep playing with it, you'll go blind. I jumped a bit at her joke and then sighed, somewhat depressed that I found my way into another dramatic situation. Thank you for your help. I'm sorry I didn't catch your name. My apologies, how rude of me, she replied quickly and with a slight bow and holding up her left hand displaying a Q. I am Griselda, Lady Gabriel's queen. It is a pleasure to meet you, Issei Hyoudou. Oh, so you already know who I am? I asked. She smiled, only a little. I did hear about your prayer though. Lady Gabriel could not quit speaking of it. You must truly be pure of heart to have moved her so. I couldn't help but chuckle a bit in reply, well, I don't know if I'd go that far. I mean, I still have the occasional dirty thought like any boy my age. Humility, she nodded at me, the mark of a great man. Truly special in one so young. I just scratched my head as she showed me a change of clothes and began the great tour of first heaven. Elsewhere, in sixth heaven, a council was held among the four great seraphim. Lords Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Lady Gabriel. Upon arrival, Gabriel was greeted by a smile from Michael and Raphael, yet as she expected, Uriel was less than pleased. I'm sorry for my absence, brothers, but I had to see to the health of heaven's newest saint. I hope you understand, she explained. Uriel, however, wasn't prepared to be forgiving just yet. 3 days we have waited for this and put off other priorities. Do you not believe we have better things to do? Lord Michael simply raised his hand, let us not bicker now. It is over and we are all present now. Now please, discuss why you called this meeting, Uriel. Fine, he replied bitterly, obviously I have called this meeting to address the rather grievous breach in conduct as it pertains to the creation of brave saints. Raphael chose this moment to speak up, please express your exact concerns. Uriel was only too pleased to keep talking, fine then. First off, he is not a trained exorcist. From what I can tell, he barely ever set foot in a church. He isn't what I'd consider strong enough to become a brave saint. Then there is the more serious issue. This child isn't even a true believer. He was never baptized and has only prayed when he wanted something. Gabriel grew red in the face, my brother, you are entirely out of line. You are correct that he is not a regular churchgoer, nor has he received any formal exorcist training. But his heart is as pure as the fallen snow. His prayers have never once been anything but selfless. Moreover, there is no way you missed his dying prayer. Tell me, who could be more worthy? But we have rules. Lord Uriel was prepared to make what even he knew to be a failing rebuttal, before Michael again waved a hand for silence. Well, you have a valid point, Uriel, I must side with Gabriel on this. Yet I must ask Gabriel. A joker, was that necessary? Gabriel only grinned, just meet the boy, brothers. Evaluate him for yourselves and you will understand. House of Hearts common room. After being shown around heaven, Griselda and I retired to the House of Hearts common room. I'd seen all the other houses. She'd explained to me all about the 3 factions and how they operate in this world. She told me that Yuma must have been a fallen angel and been sent to kill me. The thought had chilled me, but she hadn't let me dwell on it for long as we moved along. It was amazing, I had become part of something so grand. It seemed like she, along with all of the other hearts, lived in this house and that I would have a room here too. She did mention, however, that the rules for me were a little different, so she wasn't sure how things would work out. It was as we were taking a break and grabbing a snack that 4 crosses of light appeared before us. Quickly I went down to one knee following Griselda's example. I could only wonder what would happen now. Lady Gabriel addressed us, please rise you too. This, brothers, is heaven's newest joker, Issei Hyoudou. Feeling as though I should say something, I bowed, I am honored to meet you all. As she said, I am Issei Hyoudou, and it is my great honor to serve you. Greetings, Issei, I am Michael. The Archangel of Heaven. I am pleased to see you well. Beside me are my brothers, Uriel and Raphael, the blonde in the middle addressed me. They were all dressed in attire similar to that of Lady Gabriel, white robes, but each with a different colored cloth hanging around their necks with the symbol of their suit on them. The 2 other men seemed to gaze at me, as if trying to size me up and ascertain my true worth. He has 2 sets of wings, the one called Raphael input. But he does, Lady Gabriel replied to him, and he hasn't even unlocked it yet. I was unsure of what she was talking about, but I figure it best, for now, to stay quiet. Finally Michael came up and hugged me gently. Welcome to the fold, Issei. I am very pleased to have you. Please serve heaven well, Lord Michael requested of me so sincerely I knew it wasn't even an order. But my life, Lord Michael. The 3 men then disappeared into lights and were gone. Lady Gabriel had a very pleased look on her face. I have no idea how old she truly is, but the childish innocence of her face makes it very hard to imagine her being much older than me. Of course she is, though much, much older. After watching her do a small victory dance that I wasn't sure I understood or knew if a lady like herself should do. Eventually I chose to break the moment, forgive my rudeness, my lady, but what do I do now? Well, before we go any further into being an angel, I think you have some human matters to take care of. I was touched at her concern, but not exactly sure what she was getting at. I believe you have a mother in the hospital whom you owe a visit. Am I correct? I could hardly contain the joy in my body hearing her suggestion. Yes, Lady Gabriel, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much. That was when a small frown crossed her face. Hey Issei, I thought we had a talk about all that calling me lady stuff. Ooh, oh, it makes me sad, you know. I scratched the back of my head and laughed. Her entire method of speaking changed easily with her mood. I couldn't help but still be overjoyed at the thought of seeing my mother. Besides, her pout was far too cute to make me sad. Sorry about that, I gave her my best smile. You are just so radiant, my lady, that addressing you as such comes out as naturally as breathing. But if it makes you happy, I will endeavor to do better. I will do whatever I can to bring a smile to your face. Her blush once again reminded me just how innocent she was. Oh Issei, keep talking like that and I don't know what I'll do with you. My wonderful joker, you constantly remind me that I made the right decision with you. Shall we go? I smiled at her as she wrapped her arm around mine. I felt like a knight escorting a beautiful princess. That was until Griselda tried to make it painfully obvious that she was still in the room. I winced a bit as I recovered from a sharp elbow to the ribs. I met her disapproving eyes. Yes, Griselda, am I forgetting something? She scowled at me. Don't you think that you are acting a little too familiar with Lady Gabriel? Oh, don't be so stuffy, Griselda. I remember doting on you quite a bit when you were first reborn. Don't I still brush your hair on Saturdays? Gabriel answered for me. Griselda's face turned several shades of red in a matter of moments. Lady Gabriel, please. Even I have asked you to not get so carried away. He is new and young, I just feel that you should prudent in your behavior with him. Oh, Gabriel's response carried a power that I had yet to feel from her, so you presume to tell me how I am to behave, my queen. Griselda fell to one knee so fast that the sound of her knee striking the marble echoed down the halls. I would have honestly done the same had Gabriel not held me fast. For the first time, I became very aware of what it meant to be one of the four great seraphim. Griselda refused to meet our king's eyes as she apologized. Please forgive my impudence, my lady. It is not my place to tell you how you are to behave. I was far out of line. I beg your forgiveness. Gabriel returned to her normal state and stepped away from me to stroke her queen's head gently. Worry not, my queen. I know that you were only trying to fulfill your duty. I am always thankful for your diligence. I readily admit my fondness for my newest card. Even though he is not officially a heart, I care for him. My precious joker has gone through terrible loneliness and I will make sure for as long as he lives that he will never feel lonely again. Griselda then turned her eyes to me. They were much softer now, but somewhere in them, a quiet storm brewed. I now knew the full extent of her feelings toward our king. I also understood them because I felt the same way. She spoke this time gently and with care. There is much I obviously need to learn about you, Issei. Forgive my earlier actions. I look forward to working with you in the future. I beg of you to do your utmost to make sure no harm comes to Lady Gabriel. I thought for a moment on her meaning when she said harm. With the slightest of gestures, Gabriel released me and I took a bowing position lower to Griselda. Not merely to be seen by her, but to make sure she understood my feelings toward her and her feelings. It took her a moment to register what I had done and to look upon me. For the rest of my life, I will do all I can to secure Lady Gabriel's safety and happiness. This I promise you. Thank you for loving our king so much, I respectfully gave her my thoughts. Regardless of position in the cards, she was my superior as an angel in my mind and I would treat her with the respect she deserved. The final nod was all she gave me before departing the common room. Gabriel once again linked arms with me and in a flash, we were gone. Hyoudou General Hospital. I guess people of the church come and go from hospitals on a regular basis for all sorts of reasons, because even though people saw and acknowledged us, no one as much as questioned where we were going or what we were doing there. Gabriel, do you know where we're going? I asked, unsure myself having never been given a room number. She smiled her loving smile at me. Of course, how could I have answered your prayer otherwise? By prayer, I thought aloud. Don't you remember, she asked me, as you were dying you requested that she be cared for and watched after. I have made sure constant vigil was kept over her since then. I continued to walk with Lady Gabriel through the halls. My head downcast so that my hair might slightly cast a shadow over my eyes. Tears slowly leaking out. Again, Lady Gabriel had taken care of me in ways that I wasn't even aware of. Just how wonderful could one person be? She must have been aware of my thoughts because began to hold more tightly against me as we continued down the halls. Here we are, Gabriel said to me as we stood in front of a door to a rather expensive-looking private suite. How? There is no way we can afford something like this. I couldn't begin to understand how this came about. Like you to say. When I take care of someone I take the absolute best care possible. And nothing but the best would do for my joker's mother. Now, don't you think you should go inside? Standing here in front of the door somehow going inside had yet to cross my mind. Slowly I reached for the doorknob. My hand rested on the cool metal surface, but I hesitated. I had wanted nothing more than to see my mother ever since I'd woken up and heard she was okay. Now that I was here I couldn't move. She was mere feet away from me and I couldn't move. A deathly chill had gripped my body. I think I might have stayed that way forever had a warm hand not taken hold of mine. Gabriel held my hand there. She didn't make me turn the handle, just held my hand there on the door handle offering her comfort and support. You didn't do anything wrong, Issei, she whispered into my ear, but behind that door is a woman who loves and wants to see you very much. How long will you make her wait? She was right and I knew it. Finally her words gave me the courage I needed as I slowly proceeded into the room. The pale light illuminated the hospital walls. The curtains had been drawn for her comfort, I guess. The TV was turned off and no music was playing. After the door closed, the only sound was the cadence of the machines and wild beating of my heart. I slowly approached the bed expecting the worst. What I found eased my most terrible nightmares. There lay my mother, as beautiful as any day. No bruising or scarring, which wouldn't have surprised me considering how I'd seen her last. I hesitated only a moment before reaching out and taking her hand as she lay there sleeping. Her eyes fluttered a moment as she took me in. Her mouth spread wide into a grin, and her hand gripped my own with a strength that made me feel much better. "My boy, my Issei, you're here," she said so simply and yet with such warmth in her words. I smiled at her, my eyes filled with tears. "Yeah mom, I'm here. I've become such a crybaby though mom." "Oh my boy," my mother said to me as she held her arms out, and I leaned in to let her embrace me. "I am, as always, so proud of the man you are becoming." It was then that she seemed to register the other presence in the room. "Oh, and who is this? Do you work with Sister Griselda?" Immediately once she said the name, I looked towards my lady. "Why yes, I am one of the heads of our organization. I found poor Issei here after the incident. We were contacted by the police and I personally went out to aid him in his time of grief. He is a marvelous young man, you should be very proud." My mother smiled one of her 100-watt smiles back at Lady Gabriel. "Oh, I am. Thank you for looking after him and all of this. I don't know how I could ever repay you." Lady Gabriel merely shook her head. "Think nothing of it. Too much evil happens in this world and I am only too glad to be able to help with a small portion of it. I only wish we could have done something before all of this vileness came to pass." My mother merely nodded as we all sat in silence for a moment. I knew this was my chance to prepare my mom a bit for what was to come. I would have to lie, and I hated that, but it was for the best. "Hey mom," I spoke up, "the mission that Sister Gabriel here is involved with does a lot to help people all over the world. I've decided that working with them and helping others who have suffered like you and I is something I want to be involved with. I want to do something good in this world mom." This time it was my mom whose eyes welled up with tears. "My boy, off to save the world. I never really expected anything less though. You wouldn't be my Issei if you weren't trying to do some good somewhere. But does that mean you are leaving home? What about school?" I was about to try and make something up when Gabriel stepped in. "Oh, nothing of the sort. He will still live at home and finish his education, however much he deems necessary. He will, however, have some stays with us and we will occupy most of his weekends. I'm sorry to take so much of his time away from you, but this is a big commitment and he will have much to do." I was too shocked to say anything. I was sure I'd have to live in heaven and have to say goodbye to my mother here, only able to visit her on rare occasion. I couldn't exactly let her in on my secret. "Well, that is wonderful to hear. I thought I was going to lose you. Issei, you do whatever makes you happy. That's all I've ever wished for you." Her words again filled with such joy. I looked between the two women. The most important women in my life. Women I would die for, but maybe more importantly, women I wanted to live for. "I'm sorry," I looked down as I felt the all too familiar wetness in my eyes. "I swear I won't keep this up, but is it okay if I cry just one last time?" It was a stupid question to be sure. But the only one I could think to ask. How had I gone from having nothing to having it all? As I sat there and wept, I found myself enveloped in the warm embrace of these two very important people. We stayed for almost an hour before Gabriel suggested we leave to let her rest. We spoke with a doctor outside and found that she had made a startling recovery in a very short amount of time. I had looked at Gabriel out of the corner of my eyes during this and found her not showing a hint of surprise. Everyone we spoke to around here seemed to treat Lady Gabriel like the angel she was. Far more must be at work here than I am aware of. Roughly a half hour later I found myself back in first heaven. Looking at the Hearts building I stopped and let out a gentle sigh. Gabriel took only a few more steps in front of me before stopping and turning to me. "What is it, my joker?" I let another contented sigh and smiled at her. "Home." My attention was torn from the building when Lady Gabriel broke into a fit of giggles. "What's so funny?" She calmed herself and wiped a tear from her eye. "Nothing funny, it's just, I was so happy to hear you call this your home." Then she spun around and gave me a kiss on the cheek before standing in the doorway with arms open wide. "Welcome home, Issei." There was, after all, only one thing I could think to say: I'm home. End of the here. So that's it for today's video guys. Before you go, just like the video and share it with your friends. Bye.